Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. We are back again with our lovely session with MAGES Institute of Excellence. So today we all are here for another section, another series on how to develop an award-winning game with limited resources and manpower. That will be conducted by MAGES Institute of Excellence, Singapore. After the 3 days of continuous sessions with Ms. Amita Sehgal, Mr. Kelly Bender. Today we have with us Mr. John David. So Mr. David he's 18 years plus experience with companies like Zealot Digital Perception Studios, Ksatria Gameworks, etc. Some of his work includes development of tools and components for proprietary game engine, development of ZD Engine 2.0, game programming, Xbox, One Tech demo, graphic programming. He has also conducted various seminars on 3D art involved in 3D animation for companies like Chevron and immensely contributed in nex-gen kjAPI game engine development. David holds a diploma from IMUS Institute of Science and Technology from the Philippines. So we welcome you, David, on Vidyadaan platform. And as these are all Creative Warrior online programs, today is day 4, and we will have one more session with MAGES Institute of Excellence, where they will elaborate more on gaming section. Next time, it will be more on virtual reality and augmented reality, how it gets connected with the game. So, David, we are waiting for you. You're most welcome to Vidyadaan.
Hello, good afternoon.
And as we have been creating creative warriors all around, so everybody have been clicking their photos and taking a selfie with the speaker. So they all will be clicking a picture with you, posting them on social media, of course, with your, and tagging Vidyadaan and MESC India. So what would you like to elaborate? Like, as the subject is really interesting, how to develop an award-winning game with limited resources and manpower.
Yes. Because, I'm not really coming from the academic world before. I was more into the industry. So when you say limited resources, it's perfect in the classroom environment because they're really limited resources. So, but as I explain my slides later, you'll understand how I managed to merge both worlds at least. And we got an award as well. So
okay, great. So I'm going to give you the rights to share your screen, and I'll hand it over all to you.
Okay,
guys, we'll take the question answers at the end, so you can keep posting your questions in Q&A section, and David will be happy to answer them all for you.
All right, let me just set up my stuff first. Okay, right, so good afternoon again. I'm here to present, this is about 1 hour and 15 minutes, I think, if I can count it correctly. And the coverage is really, it would be interesting if you're really into games. I'm assuming that much of you guys are gamers. Okay, so I guess we could just start. All right, so I titled this presentation as Making Games, Students to Developers, Bringing Industry into the Classroom. So, okay, let's continue. Okay, just an overview of what we're going to be covering today. I will give an introduction, further what was given earlier. And also, we'll be learning about why we did some decisions in MAGES in a way that that is gearing towards a goal, and a bit of journey regarding that. And also, I will be discussing about the realities of the industry. In any industries, there would be some realities that might be true in some industry, might not be true in some industries. But this is very important to define, if you are into, let's say you're looking for a formal learning, or like you're a self-learner, or you're already in the industry, this is an important note for me to give you guys. So, and we'll have like a case study for some of the production that we've done so far. Okay. Okay, so some main points that I would like you guys to look at. I'm not sure if we have the same interest or the same purpose of why we're watching this webinar, but these are some of the points that I would like you guys to be focusing on. You'll be learning from examples, so some case studies that I'll be selecting, and you'll be learning from examples, and you'll be learning some from the learners as well. So it is important that in that perspective that we are all learners, I would say, but in this particular example, you will be focusing on, at least this is my suggestions, you learn from the learners, and in the way that you'll be learning from the industry as well. So let's continue on. Okay, so let me just list down what Ms. already explained earlier. I've been working since the 90s. So if you guys are curious about my age, let's just change topic. I've been working with some IP games, some big IP games. If you're familiar with Fate Hunter, it's a Taiwanese IP. It's a big IP, from what I heard. I don't speak Chinese, but although I'm part Chinese, but I heard it's a big IP in Taiwan and some part in China. So we worked on a multiplayer game, a MOBA game actually, for that IP. Also One Piece, if you're into some Japanese anime or manga, I worked with a mobile game for the One Piece project using our own game engine. So that was a good experience for us because that was like One Piece is bigger than definitely than Fate Hunter, but it's if you know Dragon Ball or some Bleach or some big IPs from Japan, One Piece is you would know One Piece. I'm a co-founder as well of QN Software. Some of my ex-colleagues, we grouped together our own company, and our company is specializing on having own. This is a game company as well, and we are. We have our own technology. We have our own game engine that we maintain. Our tools are from the game engine all the way to the tools, all the way to the server, all the way to the deployment. So it's done all in-house. We're pretty proud for that. And I am also the head lecturer of MAGES, Institute of Excellence in Singapore. Anything regarding game development courses, I'm the responsible guy. I'm the one who's doing the curriculum. I'm also responsible for the overall quality of the students as they finish their course or finish their modules. And even beyond that, every now and then I get a message from my students, but that's my responsibility. Okay, I also listed down my LinkedIn if you guys are interested. I think I've maintained, I'm not sure if I updated this particular LinkedIn for a few months, but it should be everything be there. I think at least the majority of them. Okay, so let's continue on now. Okay, now we'll start our formal topic about regarding games, I guess. I titled this section as Target Classroom Outcomes. So I am coming from a perspective of refining, let's say you're refining a particular course, right? So in a way, if you're not interested of being a student, you're interested of just learning a game development, you try to perceive this as why we've done it in such a way in regards to improving the involvement of industry in a classroom, or in our case, getting immersed to the industry. So we were refining the courses, because when I started in MAGES back in 2014, so I've done some modules. Of course I follow what they've gave me and what the curriculum is going to be. But I've realized that there are some cases that in game development you always need to be updated. You cannot expect to have we've established this a year ago. It cannot be superseded by this year. No, that's the wrong mentality. You always have to be checking your curriculum, or what did you know. Even for me, if I stick to what I know back in the 90s, well, I'll be a dinosaur now. So I should not be doing that. I should always be updating myself. So in this regard, I was given a chance to comment on such, let's say, improving the curriculum. So I've identified some issues, some problems that, you cannot come up with a solution without defining the problems first. So I'm going to define the problem. So the challenges in the classroom, the first off, which is, I think it's a critical thing for any type of education, may it be, self-studying, or may it be learning from university or even primary, right? Topics has to be practical, right? As much as we can, because, we are living in a practical world. It cannot always be theoretical. But the thing is, it's not just the practicality that we have to worry about. It's also how relevant those practicalities are in the real world. You could have something that is practical, but it's not relevant. So the idea is that also for the student or for the learners to realize this thing. So I know some student would fall in love with the theoretical. Some would fall in love with the practicality, but they have to realize how they came about. What's the connection between the real world? Because education does not end just in education. It ends in the practicality, in the practice. So, all right. So let's continue on. Of course, you also have to cater for the motivation to learn more. In a classroom environment, you cannot expect to teach everything. It is quite impossible. I mean, I do not claim to know everything, so that itself is already impossible for me to teach everything. What you need to do is to know the direction, at least the where they should be aiming at. So you're aiming your student to a particular direction, so that they would learn more by themselves, because they have to be constantly learning. What you're teaching now does not mean it's going to be the forever thing, right? It's always going to be something that will change, especially in the game industry. Okay, now this one is a trick phrase or a sentence. It's too safe. Why do I say too safe? The thing is, if you're for students, you want to make them very comfortable. You want to padded room or something like that. But the problem is, if you make it too safe, the problem is that the student becomes, the main question is, are they really ready when they come out from school? But if you really padded them, you make everything safe, then how can they be really ready? Because in the real world, there's a lot of stresses. There's a lot of difficulties, and if you don't train them to manage those, what happens then once stress comes in, once problem comes in? How do they react? How do they overreact? So you cannot make the classroom too safe. That's what I'm trying to point out. So I think this is also another challenge. There's a distinct balance that you have to do. Now, even for yourself, if you're a self-learner, you need to, you have to ask yourself: Am I doing something that is very theoretical? Nobody's going to use this, or am I studying something that is very practical, or something like that? So, in this case, I raise this issue as maybe we're making it too safe for the student. Okay. I mean, I'm not talking about being harmed. I'm talking about something that is, that if you're in this bubble, safe zone, that's not always the best location for if you're talking about innovation and learning. Okay, and of course, this is my last challenge that I've highlighted. At least I've highlighted that knowing the unknowns, to say training for the know-hows. That's okay, no problem with that, no issue. But the main issue is that if you stop with that, okay? So that's why I stated this as training not just the know-hows, but also what nows. What nows define how decisive a person is, what comes next, what comes after, what happens now. So if you don't give the student or somebody a leeway for them to decide on something, then what are you training them? How are you training yourself if you don't know how to decide for yourself? So these are the things that I think it's, being an educator now for a few years, it is a challenge to have this balance to hold all of these points. And some of these things, we could do it on a practical basis, on a daily basis, on each class. But there are a lot of things that you have to put it on the structural level. You have to change the curriculum. You have to change the approach. You have to change the main course itself. In fact, I will explain later how we managed to do that, to gear towards integrating something that is more practical, that is relevant, which is the industry, bringing into the classroom. So let me continue on. Okay, so now that we define the problems, now we have to think of what is our target. So you're looking at the past and you're now looking at the future. So that if you once you have a target, a target in mind, then you have, you could come up with some action points. So first off, you need to make sure, if you're talking about just as yourself, right, as a to make yourself industry ready, okay, or making the student be industry ready, because if they're not, then what are they studying for? What are you studying for if you're doing self-studying? If you're not going to be industry ready, then what is it for? Is it just a hobby? Is it just for yourself? If those are the cases, that's okay. But if you're really getting towards being an employee or being even if a businessman, you have your own company, right? You need to make sure the target is to be industry ready. It doesn't matter if you're going to be an owner of the company or you're the investor and you just sit back. It doesn't matter, right? You need to be industry ready. Okay, so also the target as well is to be a lifelong learner. This is kind of somewhat related to the initial point earlier. In life, you need to be constantly learning. Like I mentioned to you, if I stick with my 90s knowledge of 90s, well, it's nice for nostalgia, but it's not so appropriate with game development, which is constantly changing, right? So being a lifelong learner, if you're not into games or something like that, you just find it interesting. It doesn't matter, be a lifelong learner, okay? But that's our target. So we're targeting the outcome to have everybody, right, to be lifelong learners. And this is also related to the previous point, which is basically we want to have our students to be better stress copers. And to be a stress coper, you need to understand stress first before you even be coping against it. So there's this positive push, there's a positive stress that you need to add to the classroom or to your learning. Otherwise, everything will be okay. Then when they exit the world, then they become like the easy to fold if there's an issue that is come along, or something that there's some difficulties. I mean, this is like something that is even cliche in life, right? We need to learn how to be stress copers. And it can be trained. People can be trained to cope with stress. And stress is unavoidable in the first place. It's all about how you can cope against it or cope with it. Okay, so we've defined the problems and we've defined our target, right? And then how do we do it now? How did we came about this approach, or the one I'm going to be explaining to you guys? Well, we come up with some solutions. So the problem is because we need to make things relevant. We want to make something that the student will be experiencing as close as possible to the industry, the feeling of the industry. So what we did is that we sourced for projects coming from different companies. If you're not familiar with NUH, it's one of the national hospital in Singapore. Singtel is one of those big telecom companies in Singapore. So we've taken some projects from them free of charge, apparently. But the idea is to have the students have the best experience. And what's the best experience? Well, you get the actual projects and bring it to school, right? Well, the main issue here, of course, this, like I said, this is the best. If we could, this is sustainable, then why not, right? The main problem that is not sustainable. It's not always available. It's not always it's not always always there. You cannot expect the companies to say, hey, we have a new intake. Can you can you give us another project? You can't, right? We always have to rely on their needs, right? Not our needs as a developer. So yeah, the problem of getting that projects from companies. Also, in some regard, this also could be a logistic nightmare. One of the example I could give you is that there was one batch that they working with a company, and this company, for some reason, they keep on pushing their own milestone forward, right? So further, so they keep on pushing to the point that the student approach us and say, hey, the milestone is getting further, no problem. We could have more time to develop, improve the project. But the problem is that they, their contract for the school is, it would go outside their contract in school. They're supposed to be graduating, but the milestone is still being pushed. So that's why, I mean, that's how companies work sometimes. Let's say you're getting a project from another company. Some companies would try to make the milestones closer, some further. So in this case, that was a problem. So like I said, this is not sustainable. It's a perfect thing to give to the student for them to experience, to have like real milestones, have real clients, real contracts. But the problem is, of course, the logistic. It could be something that is not sustainable. Now, another approach, I guess I'm one of this in this particular part. We did invite some people from the industry. For example, we've invited people from some lead directors from Ubisoft, if you know Ubisoft, some big companies in Singapore that they gave us like they become a consultant in MAGES. Some they give like classes and stuff. It's the same thing. The problem is availability, because you don't expect these guys to accommodate you, because usually they would go into their office like 9 o'clock or 10 p.m. Some of them they do that. It's also not sustainable. It's good that you could get them, but I think it's also only good for master classes or something that is one-off, or like maybe per season there would be 1 hour, 2 hours or something. So it's still not as sustainable as So these are just some of the solutions that we did, but it's not enough. So so what is the solution? Solution is still the title of the slide. So bring the industry to the classroom. I'm not really playing with words here. It's just, this is how we will be doing it, and I will show you guys how we did that. So to do that, I will show you guys one video. Okay, so after a few modules from MAGES, me, I'm coming from not coming from the academic group. When I joined MAGES, that was my first time to teach. I had some educational units, but I have some expectations. I was expecting that they would know this, they would know that. I was expecting that something that is established in the classroom, but during those times, each module would have their own project. Okay, so if you can imagine, in MAGES they would have the module about like just 1 month, and that project will be included there. So the project would span around 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks max, and it would really be a school project. As you can imagine, it's really a school project. I got tired of it. I got tired of looking at school projects. So what I did is that I managed to convince the admin of MAGES to say, can you give me this module and this amount of time, and I could whip you up something that is not a school project. That's why I titled this slide "Not a School Project," although it is still a school project, but you get the idea, right? Something that is more than this looks like a school project. Stigma of what a school project is usually is something that is very simple. Now, let me play this thing while you guys are. Okay. So Project Horde was a project that was done by 6 students, and those students are doing their advanced diploma, and they were doing a multiplayer diploma at the time. And I've convinced the admin to say, hey, can you give me a bit more time, and spanning this thing to a few months. And within 2.5 months, this project was done within 2.5 months. This project is actually a cross-platform game. That means it works in Windows PC, in Mac, in iOS, in Android. And it's more than that. It's actually a cross-platform multiplayer. That means you could play with anybody, if even if you're in Android or basically everybody will be playing together. And this was done within, like I said, I think it's almost 3 months. It's like more than 2.5 months. So it's almost 3 months. And it was done, like I said, by 6 students. Much of much of the artwork here was purchased, to be honest. But they're all focusing on programming side. And I only have one rule when we're doing this type of project. I told them, you are not allowed to use any type of plugins. You are not allowed to use any plugins, especially if you guys are somebody asking about what software do you use. We use Unity to teach programming, although Unity is one of those game engines that is quite famous nowadays. I always tell my students, you guys have to always be game engine agnostic, because what happens if you are hired by a company that's using another engine, another proprietary engine or Unreal or something? What happens then? You cannot be Unity forever, right? You have to be agnostic about the choice of game engines. Anyway, we use Unity for this project, and the good thing about this is that we managed to prove a point, and the point was we won Game of the Year of an very prestigious international competition. There's almost thousands of how do you call this, participants. That's what I know. Of course, it's separated by different categories, and we won Game of the Year back in 2018. And we won. I think it's because the game itself, if you look at it, it looks like actually it could be something you could sell, something that you could compete with. This what you're looking right now, that's actually a graphics that is running in the mobile phone, and we did not tweak it for the PC game or for the Mac thing. So it won Game of the Year back then, and also we were also surprised, and after a few weeks of release, we got like videos coming from Vietnam, YouTubers basically from Vietnam, from Russia, and from somebody from the US, and then they're saying some of them, they're like 100,000 subscribers, so they're not small YouTubers, and they're saying that this game was one of the best game of that season. So that was really, I would say, was very encouraging, I would say. And I guess I also somewhat proven a point to MAGES that maybe this is something that we could really formalize, and we did formalize, because before this is just I sneaked into one of the modules, but now each of the courses in MAGES, now they have like a production module, which is they would spend time in as a group to develop similar games. Let me continue. Okay, so I've titled this section now. This is like the main topic now of my presentation: the industry into the classroom. Okay, you need to bring in the real. So something that is you cannot just teach theoretical. You have to bring in the real to the classroom so that they will be more industry ready. Okay, so how did we do it? So what we did is to bring how a production is being conducted in companies into the classroom. So what do I mean by that? Well, you have the student will have the proposals. They would have they will have like a simulated investors. So they will have, you're like simulating the production, the real world production inside the classroom, and it would teach them to decide and to strategize their development. And we were amazed of how it improved the output of the students after each of the production that they go through. So in this regard, they would also understand that they have to follow hierarchies, they have to follow schedules, they have to follow milestones. So in this regard, they have to in some if you look at other students, right? Some students, they would understand deadlines, some don't. So to give them a realization, a better perspective of what are those, right? We are simulating that as well in this production modules. They also have some target deliverables. That means if in a certain milestone, they would have to deliver certain requirement. If they don't, they would miss the milestone. And we have set in place some technical, some technical rules wherein if you fail 3 milestones, right, it would entail scrapping of the project and maybe redoing the proposal again, or failure of the project. So they need to understand that there should be a certain respect for the deliverables and for the milestones and the dates that you set. Okay. And of course, they will also learn how to package and how to present themselves. And it doesn't matter if you're the most awesome developer of all. If you don't know how to present your idea, you don't know how to present your game to your investor, to your whoever your benefactor is going to be, then they might not get it. Then you might not get what you would want, right? So you need to learn how to present yourself. If you're just doing self-studying, you need to learn how to present. Well, it's a bit hard to present just to yourself, then I guess that one would be tricky. But this is one of the things that we highlight to our students, that you need to present yourself. They have to, wear formal clothes. They have to present well. They have to prepare their slides, and something like that. It's something that you might think that, hey, that's super boring, or why do we do that? But in reality, those skills actually can be really useful in the industry. You're working with, let's say, you're a game designer, and you want to propose a design, for example. If you don't know how to present it, package it well, then they might misunderstood it, or they might not get it, and they say, you just shut up and do your job. It's something like that. I mean, I'm not joking. This happens. If you don't know how to present, if you don't know how to explain your ideas, right, to communicate your ideas, then that could be a problem, right? In any industry, I would say. Okay, so now the realities. Let's talk about the realities of the industry. Okay, the first reality that I want you guys to focus on is something that I'm pretty sure you're gonna say, this just makes sense, right? But it's not so obvious, especially if you're into this, this transition. Let's say you're studying your university or something. You're still in this regard that you don't really have an idea what happens outside. But let me give you a heads up. Okay, the heads up is that there's no such thing as democracy in the office environment. There isn't. I mean, think about it. Would you be able to say, hey, I don't like my boss. Can we just band together, vote it, and then kick off the CEO? You can't. Unless you're the board director or something like that. It won't happen. Okay. Let's say I don't want this supervisor that keeps on giving me job and something. You cannot complain. You cannot say, you see, we're 5 and you're 1. It doesn't work that way, right? There's no such thing as democracy in an office environment. There is a hierarchy that they have to follow, and that's the reality of it. The boss is always going to be the boss, right? Proof or nothing. So this one is my second point of the realities that you have to remember. If you're presenting to your professor, or you're presenting to your investor, or to your benefactors, or to your boss, or to your whoever, right? If you have a half-baked cake, then it's not a cake. It's a half-baked cake, right? It's either you have something. It's either you have it or you don't. There's no in between. There's no say a 500 points for effort. You cannot do that. It's either you finish it or you don't, right? So that's the reality. You cannot say, I'm just good enough, so let's just leave it. You can't, right? Your boss would either fire you or scold you. Your investor would say, what's the meaning of this? I paid like a few $1 million here, and why is it like half baked? Right? They cannot say, oh, but we did our best. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to either you have it or you don't. Okay, that's a very tough reality, but it is how it is. Another reality is that you need to, or the student have to pick up, is that the hard milestones deadline, they don't move. Even if you beg it, the hard milestone doesn't move. That means if the schedule is set. If they say, I want the build, I want the game at this day, right? You could try your best to smooch into the investor to say, giving the best coffee or something. Try to soften the blow, but the deadline is a deadline. And if you get a boss or an investor that has very very good lawyers, you might get some lawsuit behind it as well. So that you cannot play around with deadlines. So one of the things that the student has to realize, if you really want to make them really industry ready, right, is that they would have a good amount of respect in deadlines. Okay. So also we make sure, because as I mentioned to you, we've implemented hierarchies in the team. The student will be, all of them are just students, and some of them will become leads again, on top of the other ones. They have the command responsibility. That means they are able to decide on things. Like, for example, certain design points. I want to decide it. The game is going to be the game is going to be this type of gameplay. The title is going to be like this. So they have the authority to decide on these things. Of course, me as the producer, I always become a producer of each of these projects. I have the veto power to say, maybe your decision might harm the entire project. So I could say, step back, change this and something. So, but other than that, the leaders will be deciding on the direction of the project. With that said, the cliche, not cliche, but the saying, with greater power comes greater responsibility. That means if the project, right, the project fails, it is the leaders who will fail first, and the subordinates might pass a bit, but the leaders would fail. So, in a way, we have this check and balances in place. In fact, what we do is that those leaders has the authority to grade a certain amount of percentage of their classmate, because that's how it works basically in the real office world. You have the ones who are on top has the authority to give you a bonus or something, how to grade you or something. So that's what we're teaching as well. Okay, so in a way, it gives a bit of based on my experience, it gives a bit of realism to even though it's just this school projects basically. Instead, it's a school project. I call it more of like a controlled explosion. Something that is it's controlled. In a section, it explodes in a certain way, but it doesn't go outside that realm. Why did I use that example? Well, in projects, basically, it's not always successful. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes it's, wrong decisions have been done. And if you do it in the classroom, the worst scenario is that the students say, hey, we just do the project or just retake the module. That's the worst scenario. But in the real world, what happens if you make the wrong decision or something bad happened in the schedule or the development? Well, you get fired. Right? Or the investor pulling out their investment. So that's why I was always telling my student that when we start this production, it's going to be a different environment. It's going to be very intense. I'm going to be very straightforward. I'm going to be frank with you guys. And the main reason is because this is a controlled explosion wherein you're going to feel how it feels in the industry, even though you're not really in the industry yet. So that in a way, so that I would always tell them, okay, if you do this such of things and you're not so responsible of your schedule, right? It might be just okay because we're just talking about the school project here. But when you are in the office world, well, you get the pink slip, as they say, when you get fired. Okay, continue. Okay, let me show you this next game. Oop, sorry. Okay, let me just push forward. Telling the story. I could send you the link so you guys can watch it later. Okay, so this game is a when we were developing it, because when they can conceptualize this game, I was also there in the room, so I also joined the discussion. So it's kind of funny that we realized that there was a lot of fairy tales and stories that has Jack in their name. So we figured, okay, why not we call the main character Jack, and anything that is Jack related, we just put it in the game. For example, Jack and the Beanstalk, we have Jack Frost, we have the Jack Rabbit, and so on and so forth. So also the title of the game, you notice, is Jack of All, right? Because it's the saying Jack of all trades. In this case, it is a Jack of all traits, because this game is about like having 5 traits that you have. Each start of the level, you get to choose only 2. That's the catch there. because the story of the game is that you bump your head in the introduction, and then you get an amnesia. So you have like a selected memory. So what happens is that you only get to choose 2 traits out of 5 each time you start a level. But in this case, this is the introduction level, so it teaches you all of the traits. One is the yeet, the one that will remove the traits. This one is a dash, something that you could push forward. It is running in PC, but this is actually a mobile game. When we were recording it, we thought that is the best recording. We just take it in the PC. But it is for running for PC and running for mobile. I think we did not get a Mac build or an iOS build, I think, because of time. But this, we just proved a point. It's easy to port, especially Unity. You can easily port a game to different platforms. And you have the grab thing. All right. So you could see, this is the one I was telling you guys about. You get to choose only 2 out of 5 traits, right? It's really a play of words, jack of all trades. Okay, so now you notice this game. It's a, although we purchased some of the majority of assets here, but the programming, like I said, they're required to do everything from scratch. Now, why is that important? Well, if you're teaching, if you allow them to use plugins, what are you exactly teaching? Are you just teaching them how to install plugins? If you're teaching them plugins, what happens then if they go to a company and say, hey, yeah, we don't use Unity here? What happens then? If you cannot do it from scratch, then what are you really learning, right? And I always tell my student, if you are using a plugin, right, and I allow it, that means you're going to be reliant on that plugin. And what am I teaching you? To be reliant on external stuff, which is not a good thing. So that's one of the major rules that I always tell my student. In some cases, we use it. For example, like some particles that we can't really produce, there's no point to code it, then we use that. But other than that, all of the logic, like jumping, even the player controller, all done from scratch. Okay, I guess the main reason why we've done that is because, for me, my experience back in the days, it was back in the 90s, and there was no internet at the time. And the best resource that you could come up with is to go to a library. And usually we go to a library, you get the book, but you notice that the book is already like super outdated already. That was my experience. And even if I go to a university before at the time, I would say only a small percentage of what I learned there is something that I could really use in the industry. That's the unfortunate thing. But nowadays there's a lot of resources now. You guys can go and browse. There's a lot of almost unlimited number of resources. But that's the advantage, is that you have a lot of noise as well, right? A lot of noise, a lot of misleading thing. But so my advice, if you really want into learning, go for some formal education, or if you really want school, you want to coach self-study, you find a mentor that could really help you to guide you to a direction, because you can, if you do it yourself, if you're lucky, if you believe in luck, then you probably stumble on something that's good, but it's also swing in the opposite direction. Anyway, going back to point, I tell my student that, hey, even if you have access to plugin, you're not here. I will not allow you to use any plugins, because it is illegal in my class. And they make fun of those who are accidentally added something like that. But the idea is that they would have to do it from scratch. They have to learn the fundamentals to do that. Okay. All right, let's continue on. So the steps that now that we have this defined, we know that the production will be in place. How do we do it? The steps in the industry. So if you're not into schools, or you're into producing your own game in a company, or you have your own team, or you're a supervisor, or you're a producer, you could pick up some steps that we use. It is based from my experience as a developer. Let's continue on. So first, of course, you need to assign or create your structure. You have the leads, who is assigned to do what. In this regard, the student is now, let's say, usually we choose the leader that we think that is will be able to perform well. Seldom that we ask the fellow student to choose their own leader, because we want them to experience that somebody was chosen for them. You don't get to choose your supervisor unless you're the owner of the company and you allow yourself to be supervised by somebody. But other than that, you get what the others will decide for you. Okay, so the second step, now that you have the structure, now you create your proposal. And your proposal now is, the proposal has to be in a way you are really want to really, if you're proposing, it has to be, airtight, especially we have like a panel to convince. So the panel will try to scrutinize that project proposal. How, for example, they would scrutinize, hey, this project is too simple, or this project is too complex for you guys. This project is too ambitious, or something like that. So, or they would try to challenge, like, how do you do this? How do you do that? Well, how come you don't have UI flow diagram or something like that? Or and of course, part of the proposal is for them to propose certain number of assets that they would be needing for this project, and that includes a list of assets that they want they want us to purchase. So we have this, our academic director is our pseudo investor. What happens is that they would convince him if the assets are going to be worthwhile, and it's a perfect design, because this particular academic director is a artist. He's a very good artist, so he would able to challenge them if this artwork is good for them or something. So the responsibility of the team is to propose and to convince panel, and getting the approval for the assets purchasing. Okay, and then setting the milestones, and these milestones are usually done by me. I'm the producer of the projects, and we set milestones, and those milestones doesn't move. There are milestones that we set, like we call it soft milestones. They are like they can move around, right? They can move around. There are milestones that is set that can be moved, but there are hard milestones that does not move. So it's like do or die in a way with hard milestones. That's why I got hard milestones. There are cases that we move it because of a certain situation, such as there was one student that got sick. It was a valid reason, so we do move the hard milestones, but it's a very rare that we do that. And if you experience, for example, in our case, we've experienced dealing with investors or dealing with your publisher. There are milestones that you have to do. It doesn't matter if you don't have any sleep. You have to achieve the milestones, because for them, there's a reason why they agreed upon the milestone. They don't have to explain to you why the milestones are set. What you just have to do is to respect it and to hit that milestone. Okay, so for the students' perspective, we have, like I said, the mechanism to say, if we have 3 milestones that they fail, they would fail the project. It's something that is like, it gives them a bit of, like I said, this not to save, you give them a bit of pressure, you give them a bit of what do you call this, a bit of stress, and the effect is actually, you've seen the project so far. You've seen a lot of good projects, and it looks like it's, imagine that was done by 2.5 months and done by students, in fact. So you just imagine if what they could do within like half a year project, given just enough time to what they could do. So anyway, continue. So after setting the milestones, you start the pre-production. So this is a very critical stage for any type of production. You should have enough time to spend on your pre-production. In fact, in my experience, is that if you have less time spending in pre-production, the higher chance that your project is going to fail. Okay, so if you think that you say, I have this idea, let's just start the production. Well, that's bound to fail, I could tell you. Okay, the amount of pre-production time that you spend, the better, so that you'll have, I'll explain what that thing does. What does the pre-production do? But includes the designing, prototyping, and so on. I will explain that later. Okay. Start of production is the next step. Of course, after pre-production, you do the production. We focus on the core mechanics first, and then all the way to alpha. And I will explain what that means. But it's actually the big chunk of time that's supposed to be spent on the project itself. And of course, after the start production, the actual production, you do beta stages, which I'm going to explain later. Okay, so these are the steps. As you can see, it looks like it's in a company. You have like a very structured manner. You put it on a company and in a classroom, then they would experience something that is feels that is really in the industry. Okay, let's continue. So this slide is an example. I just took it from one of the presentation slide of the Project Jack, and you could see how tight their milestones are. It's not even like a month for each milestone between them. They would have each of this milestone. They are required to present, and they're always ready to present. I told them, in any design, there's a visitor from the school to the school. There's a guest or something. They're always ready to present. They always have a slide to present in any given point of time. But they always have to in this project schedule. Each milestone, they are required to show the progress and to say that, hey, we hit this milestone. These are the evidences. This is the progress. And in Jack of all, they did fail one milestone, but that was just only a week delayed. I told them after celebrating the milestone, I told them privately that, hey, we failed the milestone because we forgot to finish the core mechanics, and we managed to do it. They managed to finish it off after a week, so it wasn't too far off, and they managed to do a recovery. Okay, so like I told you, you don't make your classroom too safe. If you make it too safe, these are the things. These are the missed opportunity that you would get. Like for example, what happens to say, oh, sorry, we did something mistake, and so you let them pass, and what happens then? You're being kind to your student, but that kindness kind of has a negative impact in your in the overall learning of the student. Okay, so but of course you need to be reasonable, but you get the idea, right? There's a benefit regarding something that they need to finish something, right? You can't just always be lenient. There's leniency in place, but you have to be strict on some cases. Okay, so in pre-production, so now if you're curious about what do we do or what should you be done in the pre-production stage, this is the time that you design a game. So you have the design of the UI, you have the design of the game flow. I look at UI and game flow to be almost in the same category because they're both visual. The UI of the game and the game flow itself, they're both visual. So I always told my student that this is a document that you're going to create, and just both of them will be in one document, right? The flow of the UI and the flow of the game flow. So this is an example of the one of the UI flow. It is also a game flow that, because it dictates what's going to be the next screen, what's going to be the next mechanics. For example, where does the upgrade store going to pop out, or the mechanics is going to be available? Is it in the main menu, or is it in the game? So in this case, you could tell, yes, it's in the game. You can access it from the main menu. Very, very bare bone, but it steers it's easy to visualize with this particular diagram. It's very simple. We just did it in PowerPoint or something, but the idea is to give the flow. You give the developer a flow. What is going to be the flow of the game or the UI? Okay, this example is coming from another project. The project is X-Night Legacy. That's the full name, and it's a turn-based game, mobile game. And in this example, they've highlighted what's going to be the layout. That's why to see the buttons is quite big, because this is gearing towards mobile deployment. And they define, because in this game, it's a tactical game. It's a turn-based game wherein you have two modes. One is the tactic mode, and one is the navigation mode. So they have different effect of that. And they also define some of the details of the HUD itself. For example, this was the character icons. It was explained further in this diagram. Okay. So this is one of the production video that they've taken. I'll show you what the game looks like. It's a combination of 2D, 3D, and 2D and 3D. Okay, so the characters are in 2D. It's animated in 2D, but the character is in 3D space, and the terrain is in 3D space, and they are very composed very nicely. I'll show you how it looks like. This game is quite special because what happened was this is the only time that we have sync with the artist students. So we have a collaboration between the programmers batch and the arts batch, and they've done, so what you guys are seeing right now is all done from scratch. This means artwork and programming side as well. So let me just forward this. I could also provide the link that you guys can see the video. Okay, so, this is how the game looks like. It's very stylized if you're into this type of style. It has like it even has like shadows. So imagine 2D's creating shadows. It is running in a 3D terrain, and now this is a good example of when we're doing prototyping, which I'm going to explain later. The prototyping happens so that we're able to define how the style of the artwork, the final look would look like. And we've done several iterations of it actually. I don't have the other pictures, but you could see the changes happen and to be able for us to reach this point. And it's a turn-based game. That's nice. There's some issues with animations, but it's okay. Okay. So the next step or the next part in the pre-production stage will be the creation of the feature list. And the feature list, I will explain, and it could be controversial for some of the students of the game design courses, but well, there's a reason why I have such belief basically. This is how the feature list looks like. It's really just a bare bone hierarchy list. You define a feature by, group them together by logic, for example, all about mechanics, all about, I say, leveling up. What are the buttons that is placed there? What are the mechanics that's going to be placed there? So you group them by, by features. It's a very simple list of features. And the idea is that it's actually an alternative for a game design document. Okay. Now, I've done several games already, several years, and in my experience, I have yet to join a team or join a production that has a day one game design document that is the same when the game was released. It never happened. Okay, I haven't seen any game design document that survived the full time of the production, because what happens is that the moment that you have the 100 to 100 pages of game design document, what happens after 2 days, 3 days? Well, new things comes out, some revisions going on. They realize that this feature is not going to work. They realize this feature is not going to work at this point. Let's just do it another next day or something, or next week. And what happens to the game design document? It becomes irrelevant. So it's either you have a very good person to maintain this game design document, or not to have it at all. I prefer the latter, which is I don't prefer to have a document that becomes obsolete after a week. Okay, so I would prefer the approaches of feature. I'm partially apologizing and partially not apologizing if you learn it from from school or from books that they say, yeah, you have to create your game design document. I want, my experience, if you talk to some of my colleagues or some from people in the industry, they will tell you that, yeah, game design document, you need to have that. But when they look away, they say, actually, we don't. It's a nightmare. So in my opinion, I'll be honest with you guys. There's no, we don't be reliant on the first day of game design documents, because what happens is that, game development is a very iterative process. You expect it to always be constantly changing. You don't know what's going to change. It's going to change, right? It's always going to change. So if your document is not as dynamic to change, for example, here, like a feature list is very dynamic. It's easy to move around. That's why I prefer the feature list. It's because, it's, if you say the turn basis, we don't need anymore, I just scrap it out. In a game design document, you're going to cut like a few chapters or a few lines. You need to be like a sniper to remove those features in the game design document. And if you don't have a person that is patient enough, or like really maybe like you need a full-time person to really maintain a game design document. If you're really into this game design, sure, okay. But for me, if you really want to have, at least you have the overview, game design overview, and you have the feature list. That's it. Okay, that's it. Because you need to understand that, like I said, game development is an iterative process. It always changes. That's the beauty of it. That's why I fell in love with games, is because, you know, you have an idea now and the next week you have another idea. Or, you know, I'll give you one story. There was one game that a good thing, when I joined this company, they're almost finishing that game. But what I heard is that they would, you know, if they were able to unplug the internet connection of their supervisor, because every time that this particular supervisor saw a new game with the new mechanics, they would put it on the side. And you know, I'm just telling you the story that it wasn't there when it came. It's already like done. The game was almost done. So, but anyway, you know, this happens, and this is actually real, especially if you're dealing with publishers or dealing with investors. They would have some crazy ideas. Some make sense. Some that doesn't make sense. And they would approach you like, hey, can you insert this thing? Can you put this thing? And so on and so forth. And you have to say, okay, sure, or, you know, oh yeah, that's a nice idea. You could put it in. So it's a very dynamic production. It always changes. So to solve this thing is you need to organize your task in a most important to the least important. You always arrange it that way, so that anything that is least important will be, you know, there's a chance it will be cut off. Let it be the less important. So that's how you schedule your task. You don't let's start with the installer. Let's start with the box, or let's start with the icon. No, let's start with the meaty part of the game, and then you go all the way to the less important, so that if you realize that you need to change something, right, the only thing that's going to be cut off is the least important ones. Okay, that's just an advice in production. Okay, next. So you have the feature list. You know how the game is going to have the particular features. Then what happens then? Now you have to look up on your look at your fellow developer or your, like the class, the team, and say, can we really do this, right? So in this regard, to make the pre-production really stand out or to be useful, you need to remove the unknowns of the production, and to do that, you need to prototype each of those features that you think that is we don't know how, we have no idea how it's going to work. Okay, I'll give you one example. The jack of all, which I'm going to explain to you later. I should more of a showcase the prototype. We've done 3 prototypes of the jumping mechanics, the navigation mechanics. You know, as a producer, every now and then I just join the production, so I also program a bit. You know, this is just to really also inspire them in a way, because I joke around them with how you know, I make the code not readable, but in a way that they would be challenged to compare against mine. Okay, so the idea is that you know, we have this mechanics that we finished. We came up with 3 prototypes. Mine was a combination of a animated and physics-based simulation. Not because I did it, but because they have less corner cases than the other 2. So in this case, you know, the prototyping stage, you define or you identify the unknowns, and then you try to solve them so that when you reach the production, you know what to do now. Okay, the dilemma of this, unfortunately, if you're joining a company that does not respect the prototyping stage, the effect is that the result, usually, I've seen it happen, that you have a beta code, let's say the beta level code, and you could see some prototype code still in the base code. So that's a problem. It's either, you know, those are junk that you need to remove, or, you know, it's going to be buggy because, or you know, the code is very ugly, because usually prototype is like that. You just want to make it work and be done with it. But that's the nature of the prototype. You create a prototype, and when you're done with it, you know it's going to work. You throw it away, or you put it in a side, so that when you go for the formal coding, you base it from the prototype. That's why we call it prototype, right? The proto of something that is the next stage. But you don't take the prototype and just jam it into your project. It doesn't work that way. So you need to make sure that, say, this is prototype, this is how it's going to do it, how we're going to do it. And then once you do the formal code, then you just base it from the prototype, okay? All right, so this is a prototype for Jack of all. We have, these are some of the traits. I think, I don't know if, oh yeah, every trait is here. You have the yeet, the grappling hook, the platform, creation of the platform. We have the dash and the This is lift, I guess. Levitation. And then this is mine, the one in the upper right, which is just the navigation part. Okay. All right, and then part of the pre-production as well, you set the key art, this key art of the game itself. Now, if you are in the art industry, or you know, let's say you're into animation or something, you know what I mean with key art. Now, key art in game development, right, is a critical thing for several reasons. One, of course, is the visual part of the game, right? Usually, the key art is done by a concept artist, right? The concept artist visualize the game, how the game is going to look like, or they will create like an art that inspires everybody, right? That's why they call it a key art. And once the key art is done, you take a technical artist. A technical artist could convert that concept art into something that is, you know, shaders or whatnot that would make that concept come alive in the game. And of course, you know, that's why, by the way, just to insert something, the best art directors are the technical directors. Sorry, the best art director are the technical artists. Sorry, because the technical artists are like 1 foot on the art side, 1 foot on the programming side. I'm not being biased. Just to let you know, I was an artist for a few years back in my early career. So you know, it is basically, you know, it's a wrong mentality to say that I'm an artist, I don't need to learn about the technical things. Well, guess what? Games is a technical thing. It is a software. So you need to know the technical part. You need to, you know, be interested of technical part, even if you're into art. Okay. So anyway, going back to point, the setting of the key art, like I said, is not just the visual part of the game. It also drives the rest of the technical part of the, you know, the bigger chunk of the code is usually the graphics side. So you know, the programmers would try to aim how the game would look like based from the key art. So even though it is part of the art side, it also drives some of the programming side as well. Okay, let's continue on. Okay, so okay. All right, so this is the jack of all key art. This game, like I said, is that almost everything was purchased. I have to admit that, you know, but it's not just the purchasing of the asset. How do they blend together? How do they work together? So this is the very initial part, and then there was one person who done this. She managed to, you know, recreate, you know, at least show how it would look like, and then he added light. She added light. She added the foreground, and then this is the final key art with the post process and everything, particles and everything. So if you notice the jack of all earlier, it's almost the same style. So it's almost the same, not style, almost the same exact to the lighting. Excuse me. So the key art really helps to, you know, also it helps the programmers as well, because usually programmers, they don't get to see the game. You know, they get to see only capsule that moves around. And once they see the key art, then, oh wow, that's how our game looks like. So, you know, don't take key art as something that we could do it later. No, you need to define it in the pre-production so that it steers everybody into a certain direction. And that's an important thing. If you want to be a leader of a team, you want to be a producer, you want to be whoever's going to be envisioning the game, then you need to know exactly what the game is going to look like or how it feels like. If you say, I'm going to figure that out later, well, that's a very bad decision. Okay, moving on. So this is the concept art for the X-Knight, and they're defining the key art for the character. They've gone through a lot of iterations. Some are actually pretty good. I mean, Bunesi they chose it, but this is they narrowed down, and then now they added colors. Right, so there's a course in MAGES that they've done concept arting stuff. If you're into art, you could go there. I was an artist in back in the day. I'm more of like a 3D artist. I could draw, but my drawing, I think, is more of an abstract thing. Anyway, all right. So they decided on this one. This is their final selection for how the character would look like. Here they would explain why they put a mask, why is it working like this, and so on and so forth. So they kind of define this thing. It establishes the character, right? So it's not just, like I said, it's not just the visual part, you see. It also establishes the story of the game, right? How the visual would would sink into your to everything basically. So if you're into character, like this solo player type games that is focusing on character development, then definitely in pre-production side, you need to define those as early as possible. Okay, of course, it might change, but then again, you know what I mean. It's like you need to know exactly on day one so that you have a direction. It might change, but you still have a direction at least. Okay. Okay. All right. So we finished the pre-production. Now we are in the production side. We'll be doing the coding and more the formal coding, I must say, and the level and the UI. So for coding, this is the time that the lead programmers would be doing the systems and the managers of the code. Right. I'm referring to the code. You have system designs and managers design. You have proper data abstractions, and so on and so forth. So let me explain a bit on. Let me touch something about that particular topic. If you are into programming, you've developed games before. Try to visualize what you've done. Okay, you're focusing on when you were starting learning about programming. You're focusing on features, right? You want to implement features. You want to finish the features, and you stitch it together, and then you submit it, right? Because you have the game connected together. But that's the this is step one. That's the initial part. This is like the milk of food. It's like the starting point. You should not end in just be worrying about just features. When you have a number of experience, you would really agree on this, because that's the step one. What is step two? Well, you have to look at it this way. You don't develop by features. You develop by systems. Now, why do I say that? Well, if you develop a feature, the question is, how do they blend together? How do they combine together with other code? Does it work well with let's say you're targeting multiplayer? You figure out, oh yeah, I have this awesome feature, but you realize it only works in single player, so it won't work in the multiplayer. So you cannot just focus on features. If you're a learner, you're a self-learner, or you're into game development, or you want to learn about game development, your focus is to learn the fundamentals first. You focus on the creation of the features, and then you learn to create systems out of that, so that when you're into, let's say, in production, which like I said, it's usually the lead programmer would do the systems. When you create a system, right, you're always geared towards something that is clean, something that is readable, something that is designed to be looked at by other developers, and also something that would work with other systems together. So it's an evolution, it's a logical evolution of your learning. You cannot just focus on features. You need to focus on as well, eventually, on creating systems. What do I mean by systems? Well, for example, like upgrade systems, item systems, so on and so forth. I did not include it in my slide, but one of the first games that we developed is an RPG game in the classroom. Okay, so they created an RPG game that's like like a Diablo style game, and the number of items might surprise you. The total number of items in that game is about 50,000 items. That includes the armor, the weapons. But how did we do that? Well, you create systems. I mean, you cannot just say, if you're using a dagger 5, you do this. It doesn't work that way. Because what happens if you have 20? What if you have 10? What if you have 50,000, like I told you? Right? So you have to gear toward a system. So it is quite difficult at first, but once you get used to it, once your team got used to how the system works, then it will be easier for you to expand on them. Okay, so that has to be a concern on day one when you're doing a formal code. And of course, when you're doing coding, it is advisable that you have setting standards, coding naming standards. Well, for us, at least primarily, the reason why we have this is because for my sake and for the ones who's maintaining the code, because there's a lot of projects that we've done so far, and for us to be able to separate them from one another, I decided to have like a coding naming standard. So we put a prefix on each of the classes and the code, so that we know that, hey, this code is coming from this project. Okay, there are common projects, common code. You could create like a core feature or core code, and that becomes like a like a unified naming, and then they're not specific for each project. But the idea is that you have a very, you know, you need to create like a standard. So that's one of the things you also focus on naming standards. Okay, and then levels basically. You have a level editor to handle the levels. You cannot do prototyping if you don't have the player controller. So at this stage, right, when the development is now going towards prototyping the level, you have to make sure that you have a very solid player controller. Because if you don't have a player controller, what is that prototype? What are you prototyping? Just placing box around? You can't, right? You cannot define, you can't defend that particular level if there's no gameplay. So you need to have a gameplay first before you could have a level prototype. And then the worst of all is that if you beautify that level before you even prototype it. So you know, you can't just backtrack your process. You need to say, okay, let's have the mechanics. Let's test it in a prototype level. And once you have the prototype level, everybody's happy, right? Then you beautify the level, and there you go. So you have less waste of time when you're doing level designing. Okay. And of course, also at this point, you're creating the UI and everything. Feedback is very important in any games. If you're not investing in your feedback, you're doing it wrong. Okay, so because how would I know that if you click that button, it does something? What is the feedback? If I click on that something and then it doesn't do anything, quote unquote, the things is not obvious enough, then there's no feedback. It's a bug in the perspective of your audience, right? So anyway, those are just concerns for the production. Of course, the main chunk of the time for the production is in this stage. Okay, and so for our project management, we use a specific specific style basically. I don't know if you are familiar with this one, but to those, you will be able to identify what it is exactly. Some would say, this is Trello, but no, wait, relax. Okay, it's not that. It is what they call a Kanban board, Kanban board. It is from what I read, it's actually developed by a Japanese person from the car industry, I think. And I think what it is, it's actually a literal board. It's like you put it on the wall, and then you have a bunch of columns, right? And then the idea is that each task is placed in a post-it or something, and then the start of the production, everything is in open, right? So everything is in that column, and then the idea is that at the end of that milestone or that schedule, all of the ones in the open is all in done. Okay, so this piece of paper is going to be moving around all the way it goes to done. So how does it work? Well, in MAGES, what we did is that even though we have a hierarchy for the leads and to handle, we still allow them to be democratic on their task. Now, this is not a bad thing, actually. I don't believe in specialization as well. You specialize in the UI and then you're stuck with that forever. That would be super boring. Sometimes you want to take some tasks that is not in your level, just for the sake of that's a very nice development, I would say, for style for development. So in the MAGES, what we did is that the student can choose what their task is, and let's say they chosen one, let's say light map baking. We would tell the lead programmer, say, hey, the project lead, say, can I have this task? So if he says yes, he would take that and put it on in progress, and then says he puts his name there, and that's his task. When it's done, right, he puts the task that card for approval, and then the leads will look at those things. That's every now and then they would check that for approval, and they would verify it. Once they're verified, they would take that card and put it on done. If it's not done, let's say there's a problem, either they put it back to in progress, or they go to the person, say, hey, you've done it wrong, or we're expecting something else, and so on and so forth. So that's how we did the project management. And this particular software is actually a free one that we use. Is although you have to pay for like a certain features. It's ClickUp. Okay. It's a software version of the Kanban board. Okay, it's more than that, of course, but in here you could organize it by milestones, and you could organize it by I think by group of, you could group them as well. Usually in game development, it's always a short burst of schedules, and then you finish all of the tasks within that point. If you're familiar with Scrum, I'm not a really fan of the full Scrum development, but If anybody knows Scrum, you know what I mean. But you could Google that. It's one of those agile development style. Point is that in your production, you need to decide on a style of development. There's always going to be a style of development. I don't believe that there's no style of development. And there's always going to be some office culture that if you're going to be working in a company, right, or you're going to be starting your own company, I hope that you start a very good culture. And then I also believe that that project management also involves culture. They have to be compatible, otherwise it will not work. Okay, maybe that's also based from my experience. Okay, so we use this this style of development, and part of our documentation, which is actually, this is also cool if you want to implement it in your company, that you create like a devlog. And devlog is like, let's say they finish a task, they put it there. You know, like they put the name there. I finished this thing. I'm gonna start this feature, and they are required to log everything what they do in this log. Now, for the class, there's some psychological effect on this in this particular dev diary. For one, let's say I'm the student, and let's say I look at this document and, hey, how come my name, looks like my name is not so common, or only a few entries. So I have to work harder because otherwise they could say, it's only one entry. You're gonna get either scolded by your teacher, or you're gonna be make fun of by your classmates. So. But in practicality, in some companies, I don't know if you guys have noticed this as well. There are companies that they have a blog that they log their development, and I guess it's also interesting. Sometimes I read some of these things, and then they generate like a following, and it's also a good marketing thing for their game. And anyway, it's also a nice nostalgia effect of it, because when I look at this, I could see some pictures. It kind of reminds me of what happened at the time. So it's also a nice addition for the student as well, like a memory thing. So every now and then I joke with my old students. I just post a picture from here to WhatsApp, and then just to joke around. Anyway, let's continue. So the pipeline. Okay. So these are some screenshots of the development in MAGES. I think the first picture was just a proposal, and then some pictures, I think in the middle was done during the weekend, because they're about to hit the milestone. So they have to stay over, and so on and so forth. So, and then this video, I'll show you the video. Okay, so when I show this to my student, I always tell them, when I show this, I will always say this: welcome to the game industry. So that's because this is a very common occurrence in the game development. Because, for example, you talk to an investor that you had a phone call with your investor and saying, I need a demo tomorrow. So what happens then? So you pack up, not away from the office, but you pack up from your home. You stay, you camp in your office, and then have like a sleep. Well, not really sleeping, but it's a sleepover, but there's no sleeping involved. You finish your task and finish the game or your deliverables. Okay. All right, let's move on. Now we reach the beta, the alpha and the beta, and let me explain what an alpha means so that you'll be able to understand what is the expectation when you reach alpha. So how do you define alpha? It's a very simple line, one line actually. It means that all features are in. It might be buggy, but all features are in. So you see this feature list that I showed you guys earlier. To know that you finished the game is that all of those are start off. That means if you start all of those, that means you've reached alpha. It might be buggy. It might be some well, not temporary, but that all of the features are in. So that's alpha stage. And then you have beta stage. And the reason why you want to do beta stage is because you want to iterate several beta stages to refine that, to remove the bugs, to refine your mechanics. So it's like a repeat. Basically, you test, debug, publish, repeat, and so on and so forth. So keep on doing that up until you finish the beta stage. And then, of course, at some point, you will have an open beta. When you have an open beta, the main concern about an open beta is to be able to test your system to multiple perspectives. Multiple, when I say perspective, is because it's a different perspective, because it's no longer just the developer's perspective. And that's the best way to test your game. You take you make it public, or a certain amount of people, let's say it's a closed beta, a handful of people, or open beta in a certain area or a certain country, don't oh, by the way, one advice I could give you: do not do open beta internationally. Okay, I mean worldwide. You have to focus on, let's say, you could take one country, say, I want to test my game in this country first, and there's really a lot of reasons why you want to do that, because one of which is that it is beneficial for your, let's say, Android game. In Android, once your game is published in a particular country, it becomes like one of the first to search for a month. After that month, it becomes less and less, and then at the point that nobody can browse your game anymore. So if you go make it worldwide, right, release, what happens is that your game is going to be, wow, we have a lot of installs on the first month, and then it automatically drops afterwards. So to make that not so much, you choose one country, right? Of course, if you're doing beta, you that's the time that you remove the bugs as well. So you don't want to make the scandal worldwide. You want to make the scandal only on a certain area, so that once that scandal is solved, that problem is solved, then it's going to be forgivable if you publish it in another country. And when you publish that into another country, it's like a fresh month that is in that search list, easier for them to find it before it actually trickles over. So after that month of at least in Android, I think also the iOS does it as well. That's the time that you become reliant on advertisements and so on and so forth. So unless your game is really, really good, which, like, for example, in the One Piece game that we work with, we were surprised. Like the first day, it's like boom, basically we have like so many downloads. I guess because that's the power of the IP. If you're planning to get an IP from another, let's say you want to get from McDonald's or something, one famous brand or something, I was just random. That's the benefit of it. You have to pay for it though. Don't expect something that is free for getting an IP. So anyway, okay. So this is an example of our open beta for the public. We post this online. We also post it in the walls of the school, so that anybody can download the game in their PC and in their Android. We don't have an iOS build, like I said, but we also have the feedback, so that we could get the feedback from them directly. So it looks like this, the feedback. We just use the Google form. That's good enough. Looks formal enough. And just come up with some questions. And some are actually very useful. When we got, I think, the Project Horde beta test, we did a lot of modifications based on the feedback. So I think that don't underestimate the effect of this feedback forms. Okay. You need to make it extensive enough, not boring enough, because if it's too boring to people, we just randomly click on it. Just make it, have it worthwhile for the ones who are doing this, or even give them perks like extra hat or something in Android or something. So you come up with some mechanics to entice them to get feedback out. In fact, there are a lot of companies that is just doing beta test, by the way. Okay, our company, right, has some of these things in. We are outsourcing some testers. Okay. Anyway, all right. So just to show some series of games, I'll show you guys the this one. It's another student game. Okay, Legend of the Two Swords. I'm proud to say that I was the one who came up with the name because they were into this dual wield mechanics, and then I came into the meeting saying, why not title it Legend of the Two Swords? So I thought it sounds cool. Anyway, this game is very complex. It's a very complex game in terms of it is an action game, and I don't know if you remember with the text, it was too fancy. Somebody edited this for us. One of the feature is that you could execute a combo, but as you execute a combo, right, the window of time for you to execute another move gets smaller and smaller as you execute an action. So that what happens is that it becomes more challenging as you want to execute more chain combo together. And now to be able to increase that window of time, you need to level up. For you to level up, you need to fill the bar. Like for example, you've eliminated some enemies. You have a bar that you have to finish. When you fill that bar up, you could sacrifice yourself. When you sacrifice yourself, you start from the beginning, but with the experience that you have, you could distribute that in your stats. And I think you have 3 stats for this game. You have damage, you have skill, skill is for the, and then you have the HP. So the second one is about the skill, which is, like I said, increase the window of time for the next execution of the combo to be executed. So, or you could increase the damage one. But it becomes more useful as you progress through the game, because as you progress in the game, you have enemies that has higher HP. So you need to have like a better combo, better damage and so on. So the idea is the game is you keep on repeating the game as you go further and further, because you'll be able to eliminate more enemies. So anyway, so as you can see, this was done by 4 students with also 2.5 months as well. And I mean, if you look at this game, oh, by the way, this game, by the way, there was a question about the rookies. I'll answer all of your questions later, but there was one question about rookies. Let me explain it now. The rookies is an international, actually, I'm not sure if it's a profit company. Anyway, they are actually conducting contests for the art side and also for the game side. And they award based from certain criteria. Say they have the categories for the PC, console, mobile, and VR or immersive media. And like I told you, the Project Horde won the best mobile game of the year. For this, unfortunately, we did not win, but we got the draft selection. How does it work? Well, they do draft selection, and then you have the finalist, and then you have the winner. We got the draft selection. That's good enough. Good enough. I already told them that it's quite tough that year because it was a very tough competition. There was a lot of good games as well. So getting that award is just good enough for us. Okay, so the next game. Okay, this one is quite recent. I think it's only 2 months ago that they finished this. So this is a Project Bug. Okay. Okay, so the objective of this game is actually an RTS game. So it's a real-time strategy game. And if you know RTS, it's already a very complicated game by itself. They went a bit step further. What happens is that in this game, each of the character can level up. So as they kill more enemies, they garner experience, and they could level up. And by leveling up, they would have unlock more skills, unlock more perks, and so on and so forth. So I mean, this is not a good, this is not a new mechanics. Some games already implemented that, but the point there is that these are done by students. There's 6 of them, and then they also develop around. This is about 2 months production, I think, or 3 months. I can't remember the final. I think they did like in between, concurrent with other modules, so that they would have more time. So yeah, I guess they have 3 months for this project. And it's a very complex project, I must say, because to have RTS games works like this with that small amount of time, plus their students. So yeah. Now this game, they purchase the assets as well, but some assets are done by themselves. But the entire programming, the same thing with any projects we do in MAGES, right? They're all done from scratch. So, all the programming. Okay. And they have some dialogue system, as you can see. It's very the art style can be improved, but the overall complexity of the game is something that you say, what, 2 months for this, right? Some games to do this, you need to have like half a year or I don't know, 2 years or something. I've worked with a company that worked with almost like 2 years in a game, 3 years in a game, in a single game. So continue. Okay, so that was my last slide. It is now time for me to answer questions. But just before that, let me conclude some of the points that I've highlighted earlier. You see, you are entering, or those who are interested, right, to enter. You are about to enter the industry, and the industry has some, some requirements for you to do. There are required skills and required mentality, required to for you to be able to survive. There's two ways. I always tell my students, and every now and then I give like a free talk to them. There's always two ways for you to learn a lesson. Okay, one way is to learn it by somebody telling you, and the other way is that you're experiencing it yourself, right? And sometimes you learn it the hard way. So anyway, so that's just my point. So so you bring the industry to the classroom, or if you're doing a self-study, right, you have to make sure that what you're learning, it's something that is really relevant to the industry. Okay, so that concludes my presentation. I guess I could, shall I answer some questions? Or
yes.
Yeah.
So let's take up a few questions.
Yeah.
Although you have answered them during the session also. Somebody's saying Saurabh Sharma wants to know how to find employees for the company. I think for that, I'll be able to answer. Saurabh, you can register on our job portal of Media and Entertainment Skills Council at MESC Jobs. And there we have all the, candidates for media and entertainment sector only. Okay, we have a lovely question here. It's from
Okay.
Sati. Ashu is saying, are timelines really strict? Does company agree and listen to genuine reasons?
Okay, not to divulge too much information, but right now we are under we are doing a project in our company, and our company is by a publisher that I cannot disclose. It's a very big publisher. They do give a strict schedule, and you cannot tamper with it. They're a very reasonable publisher. You could converse with them. You could explain to them. We meet them every week. So if you have a publisher or an investor that's not too interested to what you're saying, maybe that's not a good partner. So I think it starts with who are you going to get as a publisher and investor. So don't look at say how flexible is the milestone. You cannot do that. You have to look for the point of who are you conversing with, right? If they're flexible or they're something that makes that they would be lenient. You'll be begging for extensions. Well, the reality is yes, it doesn't really move unless they say so.
Okay, so basically, even Ms. Amita Sehgal has mentioned that in media sector there are very strict timelines.
Yes.
And even other speakers also mentioned the same, that we have very fixed timelines and we have to deliver everything on time, because we cannot move the releasing date or we cannot postpone the dates. Okay, can we get opportunities in game design and development across the globe, or is it just in India?
Okay, I guess we're coming from okay, so I'm working in Singapore. I am in Singapore right now, but I'm a Filipino, so I'm from a different country, and I managed to secure a job in another country. Now, based from my experience, how you would want to do that, right? It all depends on where you want to work, which country you want to worked on. It all depends on how good you are, unfortunately, because imagine you're the owner of a company, right? If you're gonna hire somebody, let's say from abroad, that person from abroad has to be better than the one who's not local, because you're gonna be spending more money on that person. For example, here in Singapore, they'll be paying a levy for each foreigners that they're gonna be hiring, and that would mean that they will be spending more money on a foreigner. So if let's say I learn about game development and expect, okay, I'm gonna go to a country. People would hire me because I'm really good. Well, if you're really good, sure, no problem. But most of the time, right, you'll be compared definitely from the locals. So that being said, that means you need to make sure that you're really good. right?
Okay.
Before you even think about going abroad.
Tanmay Sharma wants to know what is the best way to make or present a pitch document.
Okay. All right. I'm not to plug any shows, but one of the shows I could recommend to you guys. Do you know Shark Tank? Shark Tank. It's not about sharks. It's about investments. It's about securing investors. So we picked up a lot of information there when we were securing some investment for our company. What I'm saying is that you need to know the hoops of the business world. So if you're into, let's say, I have this awesome game, people would pay for it, people would invest in it. That's a very naive concept. If you're just with that, that's just one of the ingredients of securing an investment from a company. The majority of them is to understand the business side of things. So yes, that's my answer.
Okay, Ruchika Kothari wants to know if a startup want to have a game designed in 2D, how much cost should one estimate?
It all depends on how complex your game is, and unfortunately, that's it's a very loaded question because you cannot answer that because some games can be ready. I've seen a game that one person finished it all, and then he got like a few $1 million after that. So, but you can really compare yourself with that style. But what I'm saying is that's an impossible question to answer. But to give you a perspective how you could approach it this way, you could ask somebody, let's say an artist, right? And you ask him how much do you, let's say, what are you expecting for like a single month payment, right? And then you decide how many days or how many months can you afford to pay your employees that you could afford, okay? And then you base from that amount of months of how complex your game is going to be. I think that's a better way, a more accurate way to estimate your cost rather than me saying a particular amount. More of like you gauge it based on time and then how much you could survive without getting an investment. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Anek Singh is saying, if I'm not an artist, but can I become a game artist?
Okay, they're quite related, I would say. I believe that being an artist is there's an expression that is involved, creating, they should be interested of what you're doing, on anything, by the way. But being an artist, it helps you to become a game artist. But if you are going to be a game artist, you have to accept the technical stuff that you need, that your teacher or materials will be providing for you. So, because being a game artist means that you're working with games, and the games is a technical thing. So. Not being biased on my answer because I'm a programmer as well. But to tell just a small story about that, there was a debate between an artist and a lead programmer that I overheard. And there was one answer from the artist that I felt that was really a wrong answer. And he said that, she said that, no, I'm an artist, I don't have to learn those things. Well, the lead programmer, of course, exploded. He said that, what are you doing here? So that's the discussion. So don't expect to dodge technical stuff if you want to be a game artist. That's my answer.
Okay. We have a question regarding Unity from Zubain and Nabil Ahmed. They are saying any other option than Unity in developing a game?
Okay. Okay. The reason why we've chosen Unity, right, not to bash them, is because it's empty, and it's a perfect platform for me to teach the student, because I'm expecting the student to do everything from scratch. So we've chosen Unity compared to Unreal, because Unreal is a very complex game engine. They have a lot of perks, a lot of beautiful stuff, but that's the problem of you use that for an environment for teaching, because they are bogged down by the other features and they don't learn the fundamentals. So that's why we've chosen Unity. Now, I'm not demeaning Unity. Unity is a very complex game engine as well. They have a very good community as well. They have a very large community. Also, they have they're multi-platform as well. So Unity is also good. If you're looking for alternative, you could go for Unreal or Godot, Godot, or there was one game engine that they changed names. I forgot the name. I don't know. If I remember, I'll message you.
Okay, great. We have similar questions coming up. Okay, Sanket Das is saying, if I want to be a game asset designer, do I need to have knowledge of coding?
The answer for that is no. If you're gonna go for like learning them, because you're gonna be handheld of learning the art side. But to be interested of programming as in technical stuff as well, you could, let's say you're a full-time artist student, try to research on the programming side as well every now and then, because the best artists that I know are also can do program as well. They could, why? Because they could do shaders, they could code shaders and so on and so forth. So instead of them relying on somebody to help them with those things.
All
So
right,
yes.
maybe I'll just take one or two maximum questions now. I have a question, and I think it's, yeah, good. Can we make a group and design and develop a game even during a lockdown?
Okay. Actually, before the call, I was talking to some of my students, and they're doing in production. There's pro and cons to that, but one of the things that I could share to you guys, what's the technique for being a constant, constant in terms of your production, is that you be disciplined in your time. You set, let's say, 9 to 5 o'clock or something. Everybody will be online. You turn on your camera, and then you work together. It doesn't matter if you're doing anything. I mean, you just have the camera on, so that it gives a bit of pressure, or like a unification as well of the team that they're working on the project. So the answer to that is yes, it's possible. They just have to be disciplined. Okay.
And I think that kind of a virtual office it becomes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Okay, last question. Can I design my game at home and add it on Google Play?
Yes, you can. What you need to do is, okay, you need to invest a bit, just a small amount. I think it's about $20. Okay. That amount is perpetual, so that once you get this, you have to pay Google, not me. Okay, you have to pay Google, and you need to pay for an account for I guess it's a personal account, and from there on you could publish your game from there. There's a lot of resources online to how you would do that. Do be careful of because right now, I mean, Google would constantly change their policies and their procedures. So look for some updated version of that instructions. And yes, so just have to, I think, a small amount. Like, I mean, it is hefty for some, but it is just a very small amount if you think about it. If you're, yeah.
Okay, great. With this, we have also already answered a few questions via chatting. So they were asking about, is there okay, there's a young boy, Zubain. He's saying, I'm 14. Can I do coding? And can I learn coding now?
I actually learned coding at a very early age, earlier than 14.
I guess I think so.
You know what the best time of you to learn the game development? Last year. Okay. Always last year or earlier. Okay, so there's no age. Even if you're old, doesn't matter, right? So
okay, great. With this, I'd like to thank Mages and, of course, David for conducting such a lovely session. We all have learned a lot, and of course, it has taken us our knowledge about gaming a level ahead. And with this, I'd like to thank everybody. And yes, keep posting your photos on social media with the tag of Media and Entertainment Skills Council and Vidyadaan. And yes, our selfie winner for yesterday is, let me just open. Okay, we have Ms. Meeta Rawat from Dharamshala. She is a winner of selfie contest of yesterday's session. Congratulations, Meeta. Okay, and do add your videos with creative me hashtag. Okay, so you can be a part of our Creative Me contest and win exciting prizes. We are conducting a series of sessions with Majors Institute of Excellence, and our upcoming session is on how to bridge physical and digital worlds through VR and AR, that is virtual reality and augmented reality. So stay tuned for this session on 15th June, that is Monday at 12:30 p.m. We will have Ms. Arushi Nishank, an international Kathak exponent, environmentalist, social activist, film producer, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Sparsh Ganga mission. So join her to know more about Atmanirbhar Bharat at 4 p.m. June 15th, Monday. And yes, it's Friday, but we are there with all the learnings on social media marketing tomorrow as well with Mr. Ashutosh Sharma tomorrow at 11:30. Okay, so only one more class left for with Mages International Mages Institute of Excellence, Singapore on Monday, and we have 2 classes left for social media marketing. That is tomorrow and Tuesday, June 13th and June 16th. And yes, be a creative warrior, make your films, add them on social media, and you can win exciting prizes and opportunities to meet and greet experts in the industry. So with this, the corona is spreading, so stay safe, stay home, take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.